Alright guys, BLM here, back with a new video, and in this video, I'm back with the video that I do every year for every season of Big Brother, and here I will be doing my mid-season power ranking for Big Brother 25. Now, technically, we're a little bit before the halfway point in the season. Technically, the halfway point would be next week, along with the fact that the jury is also starting next week. It does make it a bit weird I'm doing it now. However, I think there's a couple factors playing into that. One, obviously, typically, I would do the mid-season power ranking at this point. This is typically the point where the jury would start, so this season's obviously changing that up. But I think the bigger factor for me is I think this is actually a really interesting point in the season to do a mid-season power ranking. And this feels like a massive turning point for the season, this point where this new majority had just formed. However, they might be facing some adversity now, and just things are so up in the air that I feel like this was a fun time to do the mid-season power ranking. And I should mention I am recording this the morning of the day before this video comes out, which obviously means that there's a high chance that this could be a little bit outdated by the time it releases, though. Here I will be ranking every player left in the game based on how likely I feel like they are to win the game, again, based on where we are in the season. Before that, I do want to give my thoughts on the season so far, and BB25 has been fantastic. I've absolutely adored this season. It feels like a season where there's non-stop action. There's constantly gaming on the feeds and constantly talks about flipping the vote left and right, to where people obviously are criticizing the fact that Cirie is there and she has this unfair advantage, which, again, I'm not denying that she does, but I do think Cirie being there has led to fantastic TV. I think her constant flip-floppiness alongside Izzy for a lot of the early weeks led to incredible TV there, where we're constantly on the edge thinking that we could flip the vote at any second. However, my biggest criticism of the pre-jury, my biggest criticism of the season so far was that there was lacking this big moment. It was feeling like a season that, again, there's a lot going on, but nothing that would really stand the test of time, and I feel like we just got that. I feel like this flip against Cirie, Jared, and Izzy that just happened was this big moment that I've been waiting for. It's where I do think this is a great pre-jury, which is, again, technically not done yet, but again, I've been really enjoying the season so far, especially because, like, now the complaints about this being a steamroll for Cirie isn't really the case. It feels like the house is in even more dynamic of a position than it's ever been, and because I'm really interested in seeing how the season plays out. But now, before we get into the actual ranking of the players left in the game, I do want to talk about the players that are not in the game anymore and my thoughts on them. First up, we have Luke. What is there to say about Luke? He sucks. Next up, we have Kirsten, who ends up being kind of a weird first boot here in the fact that she seemed to just make this like pretty obvious mistake early on in the game, kind of playing the game a bit too openly early on, and once everyone caught on and she ended up being on the block anyway, it just led to her not really having much of a chance. No one really gave her a chance, and I kind of feel bad for Kirsten in that way, but I don't really look at Kirsten as that bad of a player. Again, not in the like all-time worst players of all time. I do feel like she's someone that probably had some potential, but just didn't know the show that well, made a mistake early on, and through that wasn't able to recover from that. Next, I'm moving on to Riley, who was fine. Another one that I don't think is an entirely bad player. I mean, I think on paper, she had some pretty poor play, was kind of just sloppy in the game, really was leaking information for no reason. Obviously ends up being outplayed by the professor side of things, though really a lot of that stems from her trust of Jared, which obviously was something that was a bit unfair towards her. The fact that she didn't know that Jared and Cirie were together, and through that Jared was leaking all of her information to Cirie, which caused the professor side to come together. And I do think that's something that's a bit unlucky for the family style side of things. And again, Riley does go home with a decent amount of people wanting to back her, which makes her not the worst player, but still, I mean, definitely pretty sloppy player, and one that I don't think had too much potential in this game. Next, I'm moving on to Hisam, who was incredible TV. I loved Hisam on this season. Now, I was right about him in the preseason. I think I pretty much called what I thought he was going to be, this kind of awkward, controlling guy that would be taken out pretty early. I think I was about right on my read on Hisam as a player, but I loved Hisam as a personality. He was so awkward in the DR, but it was so funny. And despite all that, he comes so close to staying, which is pretty insane that there was this backdoor plan for him for over a week that ends up going through. And then after that, he actually almost saves himself from that, which is kind of what makes him tough to assess as a player. But still, as a character, I do feel like he's probably one of my favorite pre-jury characters of all time in Big Brother. Next, I'm moving on to Red, and Red sucked. I feel like Red was probably the biggest dud of this entire cast. I really feel like he did not bring really anything to the table. table, didn't really know the game that well strategically, and every single time Cameron contemplated making a big move, he would shut it down. You also had the big misunderstanding between Cameron and Red, with Red just not wanting to talk to Cameron because of it and not talk it through, which was dumb. And again, just overall, like, I just found them so boring. Red really brought nothing to the table from my point of view, so I was pretty happy when he was evicted. And finally, we're going to be talking about the latest boot, which is Izzy, and I'm devastated that we lost Izzy this early. I think it's such a shame. I think Izzy had so much potential in the game. I think alongside Heisem, again, Izzy's another one of my favorite characters of a pre-emerged boot. She just had like a really fun, like intense energy while in the house that I really enjoyed. Obviously, it was alongside Suri and the flip-floppiness, and overall, I found Izzy incredible TV. Gameplay wise, I mean, there's things to criticize. I mean, yes, she runs the game alongside Suri, but she's largely doing that for Suri's benefit. She really just did not have a self-interested nature to her that was kind of underwhelming, which actually kind of plays into why she eventually goes home, is because everyone recognized that. Now, I know she's claimed in Exit Press that her plan was to go to 3 with Suri and Jared, but actually take Jared to Final 2 over Suri, which she thinks she would have won, which, again, maybe, but it's still a bad position for her to actively want to go to 3 with a very obvious duo. But either way, losing Izzy was definitely a big hit to me, where, I mean, to be fair, I didn't want to lose Felicia either. I think both of them are two incredible characters on this season. Losing either of them was definitely a shame, but it sucks even more because it feels like Izzy was taken out due to circumstance that she just so happened to be the one on the block, where obviously they would very much want Jared out instead. But either way, again, I think it's a shame that Izzy went home so early, but I still loved her role on this season. But now here we're at the 11 players still in the game, where here I'll be ranking every player based on how likely I feel like they are to win the game. Let's start off at number 11. The person that I think is the least likely to win the game at this point is Cameron. And really, it's not even close. I mean, Cameron has no shot of getting to the end unless he wins out. No one wants him deep into the game. He's the number one target for Jared right now, where essentially he's going to be backdoored unless he's somehow picked for the veto and then also wins that veto, which, to be fair, the rumors are that the veto is going to be Otev, which, if that is the case, Cameron would have a very good chance at winning Otev. But obviously, the odds of him getting picked are not particularly great. So Cameron's pretty much a shoo-in to go home this week unless a very niche situation happens. And the thing is, even if he doesn't go home this week, he's probably going to go home next week or the week after, or anytime he just doesn't win a comp. As while even the new side that formed to take out Izzy, even though that side worked alongside Cameron to execute the plan, they don't actually include Cameron in their alliance. They openly don't trust him, and it really just feels like no one wants to take Cameron deep into the game. Now, I will say, in terms of gameplay, I do think Cameron's actually been playing okay recently, where obviously coming into his HOH, he was the biggest target, and I think his plan to put up Izzy and Felicia was misguided to begin with. But at the point that he realizes that, again, I think his play of telling Felicia that she's in danger, causing chaos there, and then also being the one to flip over Jag to take out Izzy, again, I think he's done well recently. However, it's simply just not enough. He's simply just not included in any alliances. He's in a lot of danger right now, and because of that, he's at the bottom of my list here at number 11. Now, number 10, this is going to be kind of weird because I have never had someone that was guaranteed safe for the week this low on my midseason power ranking, but at number 10, I'm going to have Jared. And Jared sucks. Jared is a terrible player. Despite Jared coming into this game with such a massive advantage in having Suri, where I think for me, I think Jared has more of an advantage having Suri than Suri does in having Jared. Despite that massive advantage, he has constantly blown up his game over and over and over again. He constantly spreads lies unnecessarily that only causes the opportunity for people to come together and realize how much he's lying, which is obviously the main reason why he's in the position that he's in now, where they obviously finally got together and realized how much he's lying. Now, again, he is safe this week because he is the HOH, but even then, he's almost guaranteed to go home during the double. Or if one of his side in Suri, Felicia, or maybe Mimi don't win HOH, he is screwed. And again, obviously, it's not very likely that they're going to win HOH. And considering, again, I am assuming they're going to try to backdoor him, it just leaves him in such a bad spot. So where, again, I have no faith in Jared actually getting to the end at this point. He's built so many relationships and has just proved himself to be a bad player over and over and over again, where I have no faith in him doing anything for himself. Now, I will say, obviously, Suri is still there, and Suri will obviously try to keep him. And Suri has also mentioned the fact that she's willing to give up her game for Jared, to where if it is a situation where they give him more time than double eviction, they're on the block together, I could see a world where Suri does lay down her sword. However, it's still not guaranteed to happen. It's still not super likely to even get to that point because I think Jared's probably going home in the double. And again, I just have no faith in Jared's game ability. I think he's just constantly proven himself to be a terrible player. To where I think at this point, I think it's even going to be a struggle for him to win the jury vote. I think the only way for him to win a jury vote is if Suri really, really fights for him on the jury. And that's, again, implying that she's on the jury for a while. And to even get to that point, Jared would essentially need to almost comp out from this point on, which, again, is probably not happening. So, again, I have no faith in Jared's long-term ability. Now, I will say, in terms of his gameplay this week so far, in terms of nominations and everything, in terms of his plans, I do think he is in the right track. And people have been criticizing the fact that he isn't directly going for America or Corey right now, which I don't get that criticism. I think personally he should be targeting Cameron or Jag. I think either one of them. I think he needs to get rid of a person that's going to win comps, someone that is his biggest threat at winning competitions moving forward, considering, again, how much he needs to win comps to progress in the game. I mean, the social structures around him don't really matter anymore, considering just how much of a social pariah he is. He simply just needs to be in the spot where he can win competitions. And through that, I think Cameron is such an obvious threat to his game at this point, with him being so consistently strong in competitions. And if you can't get Cameron out, again, I think Jag is the next best thing. Technically, Matt is the next best thing, but I think Matt is probably more malleable in his mind than Jag, to where Matt at least has the connection to Suri that could probably help him out. Well, Jag doesn't really have that. So again, I don't disagree with the way he's going about this week in terms of his overall plan, but I don't think it's going to matter. And I still think he's going to need to comp out moving forward, which is why I have him low here at number 10. Now, number 9, we have a player that I think is also really, really bad, but they're not in as much immediate danger, and that person is Blue. And for me, Blue has just, again, also constantly shown that how terrible of a player she is, constantly getting tricked into thinking her own allies are against her, and again, came into this week wanting to target Jag, her number 1 ally. Now, I will say a minor benefit for Blue is that she has recently caught on. She has recently been told about the Jared information, through that has recognized that the other side has been lying to her, which is a good spot to be in. However, the problem is that she's creating a really idiotic plan with the information in wanting to target Jared. Again, her showman. It's like, why? Like, yes, you should know that you can't trust that side of the house anymore. Yes, you should know that you should take a shot at that side. However, don't take a shot at the person you have the closest relationship with and the person that can win comps to keep you safe. Like, if anything, she should be targeting Mimi, probably, is her ideal target, though it doesn't seem like she's on her radar right now. And Blue is just constantly showing herself to be a pretty bad player. The reason she's above Jared is obviously she's not in as much immediate danger. Now, if Jared does win veto next week, I do think Blue would be in danger. I don't think it's a guarantee that she goes home, considering it does seem like she's on the path of repairing her relationship with Jag and Matt, which I think will keep her safe in their book. Now, I think at the end of the day, for the likes of a Corey in America, I think they probably would want to get rid of Blue, as they would obviously recognize that Jag and Matt probably have Blue more than they do. And obviously the Suri side of things would be more okay of losing Blue than one of their own more ingrained numbers. So again, I do think Blue is definitely in a lot of danger if Jared does win veto. And even beyond that, I think it's no real chance of winning the game. I think she has no respect in the house. I think she is the person that is probably the least likely to win a jury vote at this current point, where I think you can maybe debate it with someone else, so that other person is much better positioned in the game and has shown themselves to be not as actively bad. And because that, again, I just have no faith in Blue's game ability, and she's here at number 9. Now, number 8, we're moving on to someone that was on the rise for a little bit, though I think is kind of taken down a little bit through recent events. And at number 8, we do have Jag. Now, Jag is obviously part of this new alliance that formed. He is the first core member of the new alliance that's formed that we're going to be talking about. However, there's a couple factors into why he's as low as he is here. One is the fact that, again, he is the backup target for Jared. Or if Cameron wins veto, his plan is to take out Jag. Now, I will say, I think it's not out of the realm possibility that if Cameron wins veto, he would use the veto on Jag, and that can cause some craziness. But again, Jag is definitely in a lot of danger this week if the worst case scenario were to happen. Now, beyond that, he is on the uptick. Again, he has seemingly found his way into the majority alliance. They are sticking strong as of right now. He does have Matt as a very solid final 2 at this point. He also has seemingly got Blue back for a little bit, so we'll see how long that sticks for. But he seems to have really latched on to Corey as a trusted ally. He still has his relationship with America. Again, Jag is in a decent spot if he survives this week. However, it's still a spot that I think eventually he's going to be targeted. Again, there's no way that America and Corey are going to want to go towards the end game with Jag and Matt. Like 100% they're going to split them up at some point. And just in general, Jag is a pretty massive target for the opposite side of things. This Suri side of the house is looking at Jag as the second biggest threat on that side. To where, again, I just think he's a massive juicy target there. But even beyond that, that, I'm starting to worry a bit about Jag's winner potential as well, and the fact that it does not seem like the house really respects Jag. We're looking at it from the Cirie side of things. Izzy, in her exit interview, literally said in her word association for Jag that he is clueless. Again, that's not a good reputation to have, that the Izzy side of things is thinking of him as clueless. Well, also, you have the Jared lie that happened the other day, where Jared lied about Jag having leaked him information, and while that eventually got cleared up, the fact that his own allies that he just organized this move with instantly believed Jared and believe that Jag would do something like that. And we have Corey and America talking to themselves, talking about how Jag is the worst player ever. Like, that's not good. That's not a good way to be perceived in the game. And I feel like, again, in terms of winner potential, I do worry about his win potential against most of the people that he wants to go to the end game with. People like a Matt, Corey, America. Now, I will say, I do think if he's somehow able to get there with blue, he should handily win there. But I just overall worry about his winning potential, along with his also rocky position in the game currently, and that's why he's here number 8. Now, number 7, we're moving on to a player that I really did not know what to do with this person, considering I could see the argument for this person being as high as number 4 or 5. However, I think there are some red flags with this player's game, and at number 7, I do have America. Now, America has been playing well recently. I do think America actually is probably the person most integral to the flip against Izzy. She's the person that told the information to Cam, that caused Cam to cause all the chaos that led to the flip in the vote. She's also very integral in selling Matt in on the plan to flip the vote. And again, like, I think she has done well recently. However, I'm not feeling that great about her game position right now, where the way that things currently stand from the Cirie side of things, their number 1 target is obviously Cameron. Number 2 is Jag. Number 3 is America, where again, I think if America and Corey are on the block together, I do think America is the one to go home in that situation. So obviously that's a big worry, where again, that is a very likely situation to happen at least at some point down the road. So again, if the Cirie side of things are already pro Corey over America at this point, I do think also likes a Jag and Matt and Bowie, like, all have better relationships with Corey than America and trust him more, to where, again, I do think if it is America versus Corey on the block, I do think America will go home. Again, it could happen as early as even this week, and I think that is a major issue there. Also, I'm not too sure about America's jury chances. Now, I would not say she's an unlikely winner, but again, I feel like if she's there with Corey at the end, I feel like Corey will get a lot more of the respect and has a lot more of the personal relationships. I do feel like if America is there with someone like a Matt or a Mimi, I feel like they would also have more respect. Now, again, she could easily beat Blue. She could probably beat Bowie. She could potentially beat Jag, but I do think she's kind of a middle of the road jury threat at this point. But again, mixing down the fact that she's just less likely to get to the very end than the people we're going to be talking about later, considering I do think she is going to be a target for that side of the house. And again, if this majority does crack and need to take a shot at each other, again, I do think America will be the one that gets the shot taken at before Corey. So again, I just feel like in terms of long-term prospects, I'm not feeling that great about America, even though I do think she has played well recently. Well, because of those things, she's here number 7. Now, number 6, we're moving on to a player that really 5 and 6 here, I think, are players in a similar spot in the game. I think I see them as both people that are probably in it for the long haul. I don't see them being targeted anytime soon, but also their win potential is not the greatest at this point. However, at number 6, we're going to be starting that off with Felicia. Now, Felicia is probably one of the toughest people to assess right now, considering Felicia was obviously on the block last week and almost went home and got saved due to really nothing that she did, to where she was largely aloof and is still aloof on what exactly happened in the previous week. And through that, she was left out of conversations, she was left out of plans. So again, it's just kind of unknown where exactly she is in the game right now. However, again, I'm going to put her at 6. I don't see Felicia being targeted anytime soon. However, I do feel like Felicia is on a downward trajectory jury-wise, where, again, if you told me a few weeks ago who were the jury threats in the game, Felicia would definitely be up there. However, I feel like this last week was extremely detrimental to Felicia's jury chances. The fact that she was, again, saved due to nothing that she personally did, to where everyone knows that that's the case as well, is really bad. To where I can very much see a world where Felicia is taken to the final 2 as a GOAT at this point. Like, I think her jury chances are on a downward slope, to where she is a liked person in the house. She is a respected person in the house. However, I do think that correlation to game is starting to further and further sink. And beyond that, I don't really know what Felicia's plan really is moving forward. I guess it's probably Brown Sugar Babes, but in that, she's not in that great of a position. I mean, she does have Mimi, but again, I think Mimi beats her. I think Cirie would beat her. Her plan would obviously have to be the final 2 with Jared, which again, she has mentioned before, but Jared's not taking her. Like, you would have to win Final HOH to take Jared herself, and that's super unlikely. And even then, it's not even a guarantee that she would win. Like, I do feel like Felicia's in a bit of a rocky spot at this point in terms of win potential. Now, again, I think she is really safe. I don't see anyone going for Felicia anytime soon. Like, I do think if the Jared side of things are targeted, again, Jared's obviously the big target. Beyond that, Suri and Blue are potentially in danger. Like, I don't think Felicia is that high on their radars, but I do see her win potential continuously going down, and that's why she's here at number 6. Now, number 5, again, another person that I think this person winning is super unlikely. However, unlike Felicia, this person's win potential is on the way up. And that person is Bowie Jane. And I mean, Bowie Jane's kind of a weird player on this season where she is so passive. She really hasn't been gaming too much on this season and has been extremely loyal to her allies, but those allies completely shut her out, seemingly for no good reason, only to the detriment of their games. They just kind of let Bowie go and essentially forced her to work with the people that they were already assuming that she was going to work with to begin with. So again, like, Bowie Jane's just been treated terribly by the likes of Felicia and Suri and Izzy, to where because that I think you would assume that, okay, they have no respect for her. She's probably not going to win a jury vote if she gets to the end. However, I think she's, again, on her way up. I think the fact that she was able to take a stand and vote out Izzy in this situation, be part of this new majority that is seemingly going to stick together moving forward, I think her overall jury potential is going up. I do think if she's at the end against some of the lesser respected players, I could see a world where Bowie wins. I think Bowie is probably the most likely winner of the less respected players, where I could see a world where Bowie beats Felicia at this point. I could see a world where Bowie beats Jared or Blue. I think it would be an argument between her and Jag. Like, I do think Bowie's win potential is, again, slowly climbing up, with her actually seeming to be more in the game at this point, with her kind of playing the middle at this point. Again, don't know how much of it is like fully actively, but she is essentially in the middle of the house, where she still has the connection to Suri, which can keep her safe on that side, while also has the connection with the new alliance that formed, while also just not being a target. Like, no one's going after Bowie Jane anytime soon, and Bowie Jane should be pretty locked for endgame in a position where, again, I think she has some win potential if she's against the right person. Now, again, will she get to the end of that person? Probably not. I think more than likely she'll get to the end against someone that will beat her if she does get to the end. But again, I think her positioning in the game is really great right now, and her win potential is, again, slowly climbing up, even though it's still not great, but still there. And for me, that's enough to put Bowie Jane here at number 5. Now, number 4, and I think at this point, we're getting to the 4 people that I think are serious threats to win the game. I think these are 4 people that I have the most faith in winning the game at this point in the season. The question was the order, and really 1 and 2 are pretty locked in. 3 and 4 have been flipping for me constantly. However, right before making this video, I decided to drop this person to 4. And at number 4, I do have Suri. And it's weird having Suri at number 4, considering I've had Suri at number 1 in my power ranking literally every week up to this point. There was only one little moment where Suri obviously mentioned the fact that she would be willing to throw up her game for Jared. I switched Jared and Suri for like one little instance, but it instantly switched back. And again, Suri has been running this season. She has had full control over how the season's been playing out, and has really showed her expertise as a social strategy player, where obviously people have criticized her strategically on this season for constantly flip-flopping on the vote and making unnecessary moves. However, I think she has constantly demonstrated how fantastic she is socially and how great she is at making people trust her, building these one-on-one bonds, getting people to do things that are completely illogical, which seemed to be really working for the first half of the game. However, I think a lot of that was due to the fact that she was stuck with Felicia for 2 days, and through that, the likes of Izzy and Jared were able to ruin a lot of the things that she built. And straight up, position-wise, Suri is not number 4 on this power ranking. She is definitely in a worse position than number 4. However, I have so much faith in Suri's game ability to where I could definitely see a world where by the end of this week, she's fully recovered from this. Now, I don't know if it'll be enough to recover Jared as well, but I do think there's a world where Suri can find herself back in the middle of the house, rebuild some of the relationships that she's burnt along the way, particularly someone like a Matt, a Mimi, a Bowie, keep on Felicia, possibly even be cordial with Corey to the point where they don't target each other. Like, I think the inroads are there for Suri. And if Suri gets to the end of the game, I think she is a guaranteed win. I do not see a way that Suri gets to the end and loses, with how much respect the players on this season seem to have for her. But obviously the issue is getting there, not just in terms of short-term safety, which again, I can have a lot of faith in her recovering from that. However, I think the bigger issue is her end game, where I just do not know who is taking Suri to the end. end, where when even her closest allies in like a Felicia and a Mimi are recognizing the fact that they can't go to the end with Suri, where again, Felicia literally made that final 2 with Jared because she knew that fact. It's an issue. I just don't know who's taking Suri to the end, and it's very unlikely that Suri wins her way there, to where again, for weeks we were in this power structure that had it so that Suri was going to get to the final 3 in a situation with people that were going to take her to the end, and Izzy and Jared. Again, Izzy a bit wonky now, but again, that was the thought at least. However, where we're at now, I just think it's so unlikely that she gets to the end, but I still have so much faith that she's able to get herself close to the end, and if she's able to trick someone at the very, very end to get to the very end of the game, I think she's a shoo-in to win. But this is definitely the rockiest position Suri has been in the entire game, which even at that point, that just leaves Suri here at number 4. Now number 3, and this is a player that, again, I was coming into this expecting him to be much lower on the list, especially considering the Jared HOH. However, through seeing some recent information, I decided to bump him up. And at number 3, I do have Corey. And again, it's kind of this interesting case where obviously Corey and Jared just had this massive fight that would make you think that he would want to target Corey, and Corey is going to be on the block, but it seems like Corey is relatively safe to where, again, by the way they talk, Cameron is definitely the bigger target than him. Jag is definitely the bigger target than him. And even if he's on the block against America, America would be the bigger target for him. It seems like he's 4th on the pecking order for the Suri side of things, which is obviously far enough down to where he should be safe for this week, which I think is really the biggest worry for Corey. As I think beyond this week, I think Corey's in a pretty decent spot. Where again, if Cameron's able to go home this week, and then Jared's able to go home during the double, that puts Corey in a pretty powerful position, where obviously he still has that core alliance with him, America, Jag, and Matt. Still has the connections to Mimi and Bowie that he's built, while also still not being the biggest target for the Suri and Felicia and Blues of the world. Corey would be in a pretty decent spot there to make it towards the end game. And I think at that point we're getting into the issue of, again, can he comp out? I don't know. And the thing is, Corey has proved himself to be pretty good at quiz comps, and he has talked about how he's throwing competitions, but I don't know if that means he would actually win those competitions. I mean, a lot of endgame Big Brother comps at this point have become a lot more physical, and through that, I don't know if Corey can keep up with the likes of a Matt and a Jag. And really, in most comps that aren't as physical, I do think the likes of a Mimi could potentially beat him as well. And again, I just don't know how to feel about Corey's endgame potential in terms of himself getting himself to the end, though I think Corey actually has better potential of people wanting to take him to the end. As of right now, again, I think America and Corey are pretty locked in. I think they will take each other to final 2. I think there's a world where if a lot of her allies are gone, that Mimi could potentially buy into the final 2 she has with Corey. And I think Corey's fight with Jared, while obviously bad on paper, I think by the end of the season, it might actually be a benefit to him, where it could potentially make it look like the Suri side of things would never vote for Corey, when again, I still think they definitely could. And beyond that, I just have a lot of faith in Corey's strategic ability. I think out of this cast, outside Suri, I think Corey is probably the best player on the board. He's the person that knows the game the best, the person that has been doing a lot of subtle work over the last few weeks. And while I think he does have some issues of presentation, again, I think his selling of those ideas are not the greatest, I do still think all around he is a pretty solid player here. One that had been setting up this move for weeks. He's been building these one-on-one bonds with the likes of a Mimi, a Jag, a Matt, and a Bowie, all to lead up to this point. And again, it kind of reminds me of Kevin Jacobs to a degree. Mind you, I don't think he's playing as well as Kevin Jacobs did in BB Can 10, but I think he's trying to play a similar style of game. And the move to take out Izzy felt very reminiscent of the move to take out Tanisha in that season, of him like actively putting together a blind side to bond a group together. And it seems like that has worked effectively here, to where that group is working together to try to get Jared to backdoor Cameron so that they can work together moving forward. I do think Corey did a lot of good work recently, and mixing out the fact that, again, he's not in immediate danger of him being relatively low on the pecking order, and also still has a lot of win equity and a lot of game ability. And that is why I have Corey here, number 3. Now, number 2, and my top 2 are pretty definitive. I think these are the top 2 players in the game, both in the fact that they are safe in the short term, no one's targeting them, they're playing the middle, but also the fact that I think they have a lot of ability in the end game to comp out, and also can also win a jury vote. And to be honest, there wasn't that big of a difference for me between these two coming out of the eviction, though I think that has changed with some more recent events. So at number 2, I'm gonna go with Matt. And Matt is an interesting player on this season, one that has seemingly picked up the game to where, again, for a while he was kind of just like blindly following Riley and eventually was like blindly following Suri. Though it feels like we've gotten to the point where midway through last week, he was in a brilliant position. He was really actively playing the game a bit more, actually rebuilding his relationship with America and kind of perfectly putting him in the middle to where while these two sides were starting to form, he was really able to work with both of them. However, because the move had to be made, he essentially was forced to pick a side, which did lessen his position somewhat, but he's still in a solid position. Again, he's not even on the Suri side of things radar. Like, again, he is not in the top 4 targets for them, which is a pretty great spot to be in for Matt, considering Matt should dominate endgame comps. Matt is the type of person that is going to win all these like physical, mental competitions in the endgame, and through that, Matt should be primed to win out at the very end. So again, I think if he's at the end against most people, I think there's a very good chance that he can win on paper. I do think a big issue for me, and this is the reason why I think he's more solidified number 2 at this point, is what we saw from Izzy's exit press, where Izzy was asked to do word association, and for Matt, she said sweet, doesn't know what's going on. And I think that is the issue for Matt. I think Matt still has this perception on him that he is clueless in the game and that he's a blind follower. Even after he made this move here, I think people are perceiving this as, oh, Jag and Cameron tricked him into making this move. And that's not good. Now, again, I think he can turn that around. I think if he can sell himself good enough to where they believe that he did this on his own agency and that he knows what he's doing currently in his positioning in the game, then I think that would be obviously very good for Matt's win equity. But I do worry that that is the perception of him there, especially considering what happened with Jared, where Jared just seemingly completely underestimates Matt and had tried to use his disability against him, saying, oh, you just heard me wrong, saying that you misunderstood me. Again, like, one, again, kind of icky from Jared, but also, I think very much plays into how the Jared views Matt, to where, again, if that is the way that the entire Suri side of things looks at Matt, that's not good for his jury chances, but he is just very well liked. He is very good socially. No one in the house dislikes Matt. So again, if he's able to comp out at the end, still keep these good relationships, and able to prove to them that he has some strategic ability, again, I think he should be a massive jury threat, especially considering his current position in the game. But I do worry that maybe there's a path where if he gets to the end, they're going to consider him as someone that was kind of clueless and only got there because he comped out to the end. So again, I think there's these two sides to it, but I still think Matt is by far the second most likely winner on this season, which is why he's here at number 2. Now, number 1, the number 1 person on my mid-season power ranking is someone that is shocking me, considering this would not have been the case until just a couple days ago, where obviously just everything blew open. But at number 1, I do have Mimi. And again, it's funny considering Mimi has been so passive in the game. And that's been her biggest issue. Like, she's been in this position where she's been with the Suri side of things, but has really not expanded beyond that. While people have tried to go and talk game with her, she has not really been receptive to any of that. And even then, within Suri's group, they've been leaving her out on things. They've not been including her in every alliance. They're going to leave her out in the Felicia vote until the last second. And again, like, Mimi has not been that well positioned for a while. Now, again, she has been decently positioned in terms of longevity, but not in terms of having this end game structure. I'll take her to the end. And also, if she got to the end in that way, I don't know if she would be respected. I think that all changed. Like, I think at the moment where the vote flips to take out Izzy and she is a part of that, I think Mimi is such a deadly player at this point in the game, where she is actively playing both sides at this point. So again, not in danger at all. No one is targeting Mimi. She should have a pretty locked in spot deep into the game, and kind of similar to Matt, though I think probably better than Matt. Where again, Matt is associated with Jag, and through that they can end up on the block together. Matt has also burned a bit more relationships on the Suri side of things, particularly with Jared, while Mimi really hasn't. Mimi is still perfectly playing the middle in a position where no one has any animosity towards her, while also being lock safe, still having her relationship with Felicia, which is very important for her. And unlike Matt, I think it's someone that is very well respected in the game. Or again, as I mentioned with Matt, I do worry that there's a path where he gets to the end and just is not respected. I don't see that with Mimi. Like, I could see a world where, okay, Mimi's at the end against Corey and Corey has more respect than her, or she's at the end against Suri and obviously Suri would have more respect for her. But one, I don't think she's actively planning on going to the end with them. But I do think Mimi is pretty well respected here, where if she gets to the end against most people, I think she'll probably win. Again, looking back at Izzy's word association, one of the only people that she was even positive about on her way out was Mimi, saying that Mimi is smart. And while again, Izzy isn't on the jury, but if this is the way that the rest of her alliance feels about Mimi, that's a very good sign. Like, I think if Mimi gets to the end, I think she will have the votes of the Suri side of the house, and could also easily pick up the likes of a Corey in America. Could just outright be a lot more respected than the person she's up against. Like, I think Mimi is a serious threat to win the game if she gets to the end, especially not against, again, the massive threats at this point. Again, especially if she's not against Suri in particular. But I also think her path there is pretty solid as well. Again, like, she is safe to the end game. I think she's the type of person that will probably do better in end game comps. So I could definitely see her starting to win some competitions once we get there. But I also think it's like underestimated enough to where I think there's a world where people do take her to the final two and lose to her in a similar way that happened to Taylor last season. Because I don't think Mimi is someone that's actively being looked at as such a massive jury threat, despite the fact that I think she kind of is. Again, mixing all those things together, again, like, she's just in such a great position at this point where I think she's really the most stable presence in a season filled with really chaotic players, which I think is something to be attested. To where, while I could see the argument that, okay, they're not going to reward someone that's so different from them, that plays the game in a more boring way than them, I actually think the opposite. I think because of that, they will look at her as the person that was able to go against the norm, the person that was able to play the game in a different way, and through that was successful in playing that way. And I just feel like Mimi is such a massive threat to win the game at this point, which is why I do have Mimi here at number 1. But there we go. I mean, that is my mid-season power ranking for Big Brother 25. Again, we are in this really crazy spot in the game, and it doesn't really feel like it's slowing down anytime soon. So again, really enjoying this season, and like other seasons, obviously you can expect a season review when the season's done, which I'm sure will be ridiculously long, alongside a player ranking of everyone from this season. And beyond that, obviously we just have a lot of shows currently going on. I'm still doing a review for Challenge USA 2. We obviously have Survivor and Amazing Race starting up soon, where my Survivor coverage will be very similar to my coverage for Big Brother here. And if you want to hear my thoughts about these shows as the season goes on, you can follow me on Twitch at twitch.tv/themarine review, where I do stream every Wednesdays and I guess Saturdays for the short term at 11 p.m. Eastern time. So you can catch me there. But beyond that, again, the channel's really just staying the same. So get used to very similar content down the road. But yeah, for now, that is the video. Thank you for watching.